You're here with Bob. No, we don't. We're glad you're here.
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Great. Chiefs won.
Yeah.
No.
Finally.
Okay, you lost.
Yeah. That happens.
So did K-State.
Yeah.
Rod, how are you?
Good. What you been up to?
I don't know.
Sitting around.
Just sitting around.
Yeah.
Do twiddling my thumbs. So, what have you been doing? I was hoping I'd see you at Rottlers, but then I remembered you at the Nutcracker.
It was funny. So, at the game on Friday night, Lisa's like, too bad you guys can't be at the party tonight. I was there by myself. And I texted Ken, I'm like, what kind of party is this? I don't know. And then we saw the pictures. Ken's like, oh, that's right. Yeah. How was that?
It was fun. Friday night, I was at the orchestra band. So Rich was the night before.
Oh,
It was fun.
Good.
Great job.
good.
Yeah, they do good. And Ryan did an awesome job. Hey,
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
thanking the board.
Yeah, yeah, that's what everyone says. Very nice. Good, good. Cool.
How's your mom and dad doing?
They transferred mom today from Wichita Harbor to Iowa.
Yes.
Accessible to the community, which could be good and bad, because the visitors will be lengthy and lined up.
You'll be all worn out.
Yeah. So,
But I'm sure that's good for her mentally.
oh, this should be a no-brainer. Last couple of days, it's just been
I hope so. I never know anymore.
medically, they're fine. And they had to make the transfers. Medicare is complicated, you gotta make sure the receiving hospital approves the transfer and all that stuff, payment. They got that all worked out.
These things
Good,
are planning
and that's a relief to hear. I've been thinking about you guys. Oh.
Cards
Something. She's really, this has been a big leap year. She's really changed a lot, really, she's kind of grown up a lot.
Is this
But yeah, she's auditioning tonight for the Jungle Book.
it's on my calendar? I'm not sure. I'm
Her? Yes. She was practicing. Yeah, Helen Hawker. They're doing
How fast is she going?
So I've just been,
Oh, wow.
you know, she doesn't like it when I'm not available to take her. And this is her third audition in a row that Alex has had to take her. Something different about Dad. But no, she'll be fine. And she even said, with this one, I'm probably not quite as nervous because she did tell me if she doesn't get the part, then she would like to be on the crew team.
It's what?
Great. She hasn't done that except at summer camp. And she knows how to run everything because of the summer camps at the Pacific Theater. And she'll do like a tech camp and she'll learn how to run the light board and the sound board and, you know, all that stuff. So it's like, at least she'll have, you know, it will be less disappointing if she doesn't get an actual acting role. So,
in the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, I didn't know that. We're gonna go see him on Sunday.
Are you?
Yes.
She's in the ensemble cast.
Yeah, so exciting.
Ball doing it. I'll tell you
Right, it is so
what it takes. They practice every night for
Oh
30
my gosh,
days.
it's grueling.
Sundays. And then the performances are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday
Yes.
for every weekend in December. So it has been a learning curve.
Such a commitment.
Big commitment.
I have a feeling this is not a Christmas card.
This spring. We are Little Shop of Horrors.
I love it.
Which has a best floor in the senior
Not here. Puppet, yeah. That is hilarious. I love that. We've always talked about really, like the villains and stuff are always the best roles to play. They're fun and meaty and. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh,
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Guess they'll come out here. We ready? Okay.
Did you see the one change?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the, my gosh, December board meeting. These months fly by. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand up and join us. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 2 items under President's Remarks today. The first, apparently we're naming it the Rich Eckert Appreciation Award because that's what the agenda says. But Rich, we have a plaque for you to recognize your service on the board. Thank you for your time with us. Ken is, would make us go down front or, yeah, let's go down there.
I got a photo bomb. Go ahead.
Yeah, get it that way. Yeah. Smile. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say to everyone, thank you for all the work and all the questions that I made you answer. And if you have any questions of me in the next year, please feel free to call. I've set my 2018 rates at 275%. Everyone have a good one.
The next item. Did he really just leave?
Right, I never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, we don't know. So our next item is the district, and in fact, a number of us were at this, at the State Kansas Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. The Seaman District was presented the 2017 President's Award. And so I'm going to give this to, actually Steve signed it, but I'm going to give it back to him, congratulating him. She's going to make us go down there again.
Okay, great.
I'm getting my exercise. We should get fitness probably for this.
Right hand here.
You're on the right side.
Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you. Obviously, a collective effort from our staff. Our PE staff is very integral in pulling off our wellness policies. Rod helps with that crew. Annie's on that committee. There's just several people that work very, very hard at that. So we're kind of a shining beacon in that arena. So it's been nice to be a part of that.
No superintendent's remark.
None.
Okay. Next, we have public communication. If anyone would like to address the board, this is the time to do so.
I received a piece of mail, Fred. Do I count as the public? And this is something I've heard from other people, but it's someone just talking about all of the research on increasing recess and is asking if we could look into increasing the amount of recess in the Seaman District.
Okay.
I
How
don't,
about we get that to Rod?
all right, I will do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have adoption of the agenda. We have one change to the agenda that was originally published, and that is adding item 7F, the Consider Optimus Lease Agreement Renewal. Any other additions or changes? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Carl, second by Frank. Any additional discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next up is disposition of business by consent. Is there any questions about any of those items? If not, we have a motion to motion by Carl. Second by Frank. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Discussion item 6A. Who starts this?
Yeah, I'll start that.
Okay.
Career Pathways is a component of an individual plan of study for a secondary school student. Secondary school students are defined as students in grades 7 through 12. Individual plans of study are truly what it means. They're individual in nature, prescribed for each individual student in our middle and high schools. And there's been a group of educators working diligently at this. The career pathways are simply the framework that school districts put in place to allow for an individual plan of study to occur. These individual plans of study for our 1,200 kids in the high school and our 600 students in the middle school are flexible in nature. They don't pigeonhole a student in a particular career path. They change and oftentimes are involved in multiple pathways at the same time because courses will plug into multiple pathways. So here to present the work that the group of educators have been doing now for the better part of a year and a few months are Annie Diedrich. We also have a couple of our folks from the high school here. Steve Alexander from our counseling department is here. Danita Fernandez Flores is here from our high school administration. Both of those folks will be speaking momentarily on really the nuts and bolts of how we've pulled this together. It's quite remarkable, and we're excited to share it with the board and the public this evening. So it's our first opportunity to share it with the board, not asking for any approvals at this point in time. We certainly want to educate the public and the board as to the progress being made. So with that, I'll turn it over to Annie.
All right. My part is really easy. I just get to talk about what this looks like at the state level. And for KSDE, they have set a CTE vision and purpose. And it's what Dr. Noble talked about, that we just really want all Kansas students engaged in quality career pathways to prepare them for a lifetime of opportunities. And the purpose is that we want to lead all of our students to college and career readiness. And so that is what the high school has been working on since the process started last spring, worked through the summer and into the fall. And so I'm going to turn over to those who have done the heavy work so that they can talk to you about where we're going with that.
In case you don't recognize us.
We tried to get them to take that out.
I'm Anita Fernandez Flores, assistant principal at Seaman High School, responsible for curriculum with my colleague.
Steve Alexander, and I'm a counselor P through Z on the 10 through 12 side.
So we're here to describe for you the process we've undergone to try to enhance the programming, the excellent programming we already have at our high schools, by adding or doubling or more than doubling the pathways that we've already have in place.
So advantages, some of the things that we're trying to get that we had started and had been doing for the last, I don't know, several years when this first started. But what we want to really kind of jump on since the individual plans of study is trying to expose and get kids into areas that they might not know. You know, we made a big jump, thanks to you guys, to have career advocates and college and career advocates to talk to kids so we make sure they're thinking about what they're going to do after high school and those kind of things. Now we think that we need to try to make our curriculum so we can help them out. We're doing a lot of career exploration and success 101, and now we have career cruising online so that they can do career exploration through the 12th grade. And so what we're trying to do with Pathways is to give them more project-based learning opportunities, but also to say, well, I took this assessment, it says I should look into this field, so now what do I do? And we had a lot of things in place before, but I think that we've kind of tried to put it into groups so kids can say, well, if I want to be an architect, then here's some classes in school that I can take that'll lead me down that, pathway. And maybe halfway through I say, there's no way in heck I want to be an architect. And so then they can jump over and do something else. But all we're trying to do is really trying to expose them, because a lot of kids, they know what they know. You know, mom is a teacher, dad does this, and that's all I know, so I'm just going to follow in their footsteps. And so what we really want to try to do is, and we know we can't open the door like colleges can, or business schools and stuff like that can, but we can try to open the door so that they can look at a path, take some classes in some kind of a sequence that will lead them into higher and deeper learning in that area that will hopefully better prepare them when they go on to their post-secondary degree. And that's what we're trying to get at. There are some other things that go along with this. There are, in some instances, one of the things that we tried, that Dr. Nobles brought on, is Project Lead the Way, which there can be some college credit through that. There's some other things that we have in place in Pathways where you can get some college credit through that as you start that resume towards what you want to do when you leave high school. So that's all we're trying to get them to do, is to try to think about it, but also have a plan as you think about it, not just say, here's some electives, take some electives, let's put it into a linear grouping, and so they can have an intro level class, a technical level class, and then something that's more of a capstone that gets them a more of a rich understanding of what that field's going to be. A lot of that is through the internship program that's really flourished, but we have some other areas as well. The bank, the Seaman High School bank, is a capstone. So some of those things. So
2/3 of jobs here in the near future will require post-secondary education types of work. And our pathways, currently we have 9, are ways in which we can expose students to those career opportunities. And what we are now proposing is to enhance those pathways with these 13 extra pathways that we have been able to identify as currently existing in one fashion or another in our educational programming. Educational program, and seeing how we can put more coherence and being able to mindfully structure the courses we offer into these pathways. We discovered that we already offer many of the courses that belong in these pathways, and we've had to add about 5 or 6 new courses in order to complete what we envision would be an exceptional programming for our students at the high school level. So what I'm going to do now is describe for you the action steps we've taken to put these pathways together, and then Steve is going to run you through an example of how we did that. As Annie discussed earlier, we went this summer, the leadership team here at the district office looked at our educational program guide that we had, and we looked at the pathways that Kansas State Department of Education offers for us, and we started identifying the courses that we already had with the pathways. We put that organization together and took that document to our classroom leaders, our teachers were provided that document, and we challenged them to look at their curriculum, at the outlines and the competencies that they have in those classrooms, compare them to what we were looking at, and to give us guidelines of whether this was doable, given that they are the masters of that curriculum, and what we needed to do to either enhance or add to our program of study in order to be able to meet the requirements of those pathways. They provided that to us, that feedback, and we have to add about 5 courses, and others were just a matter of identifying the competencies that need to be added, the ones that need to be deleted, and maybe even renaming a classroom to better fit that pathway. We've submitted the application of those courses to the Kansas State Department of Education so that they would approve the coding, which is how they match up our courses with the courses that they want to see offered for the pathways. And we are now ready for submittal of the pathways to the Kansas State Department of Education. So that has been our 4-step process to get to where we are now. How we did that, I'm going to pass that on to my colleague, Steve, to show how we looked at the pathway and identified how it fit in our school.
Okay, so every pathway the state has put out what they feel like is needed for introductory level courses, many technical level, And to be what they call a completer or someone that's completed a pathway, you have to take what is offered at the introductory level. Anything that's at the technical level that's required, there are some that have required classes that they have to take. But like, for instance, this has a lot of variety in there. And then an application level class, really 1 credit at each level, you know, to make 3 credits. And credits are usually a full year. Okay, half a credit is a semester. And so, like for the health pathway, everything in green, biology, chemistry, anatomy and physiology, which is our human anatomy 1 and 2, were classes we already had. This year we offered the Project Lead the Way, Principles of Biomed Science. And next year we will be coming on board with Human Body Systems, which is the 2nd class of Project Lead the Way. Nutrition and Wellness, you know, we had to do a little bit of, is the nutrition and fitness class that we teach in the FACS department. So there was some competency she needed to kind of refine a little bit and enhance to make that fit, and we had to recode. And then, you know, and then an application level, 2 years from now, we'll have biomedical innovations, which will lead people to be a completer in this area. But also the nice thing about like this pathway is, you know, there's phlebotomy, certified nurse's assistant, certified medication aid. Those are all things that kids can go to Washburn Tech and get. And all are just 1 semester classes to get that extra certification to, you know, while they're pursuing maybe something, maybe they want to be an RN, but you get a CNA, now you're going to get to work at a higher paying job than minimum wage and get experience in that area to see if that's what you really want to do. So, that's a pathway that students have in game of certifications through Washburn Tech or biomedical intervention. They can still have that. So those are kind of what we did with every single pathway they have. Yeah.
Mr. Ellison, does every student have to select a pathway?
No, we are just trying to get them to say, okay, this says that ag is something that you want to look at. Here's the several pathways we have. Let's try some of this and try to go in a direction and see if that's something, you know, because some kids do those and they say, no, that doesn't fit me at all. But I haven't really ever thought of that either. So what we're trying to do is, okay, here's some pathways that we have in the ag area that you might, you know, consider. It's not just, some people think ag, I'm going to get on the tractor and pull a plow, and there's a lot of different other things that you can do in that area. So hopefully we can steer them towards that, and they can get in the pathway, and if they say, really, this isn't for me, they can jump off at any point and go to something else. We're just trying to give them a roadmap, but we're not telling them the direction they have to go. We're not, you know, we're not Siri telling you, stay on this path, you know. We're letting them go where they want to, but we're just trying to give them more avenues to be able to explore. So that's our shtick.
Do you have any questions for us?
So if we have a course currently that's not part of KSDE's defined pathway, you're saying we submit to get added to that definition of what the pathway is in their eyes.
Yeah, and sometimes you have
And it doesn't look like there's very many. I mean,
well, this is one pathway.
sure, but
Right.
you're not throwing like 10 at it. It's
No.
most likely they've already got a lot of what we want anyway, or
Right.
Some
Vice
of the
versa.
9 pathways we already have in existence have approved courses that fit with some of the pathways that we're going to be submitting for approval. So we already offer.
And I
Go
think
ahead.
one of the reasons why we haven't had as many pathways is because I think as the internship program has really taken off, and we found that we can use that as kind of the application or capstone, I think that's really
Yeah.
helped us be able to jump in on more.
And then, I don't know how to ask it, I guess, but Christy's got a good point. We don't want, I mean, I get kind of stuttering through this because I'm thinking faster than I'm talking, but when we did the Independence Tour and visited, you know, they had academies, for example. They had
Right.
clustering around their pathways. I'm not, obviously, if you don't think that's something we should do, that's fine. But that seemed to make a lot of sense to say that we have kids, every kid, not some kids in pathways and some not. Like those kids, when we went there, they knew I'm in the business academy. I'm in the health academy. I'm in the law academy, right? And whatever branding or
Correct.
naming you want to put on that. if we're not capturing all the kids, how do you, I guess I don't understand that quite yet. How do we apply the pathways and try to hit, I assume the goal would be to get all
As many
kids
as we
eventually.
can, yeah.
And we have to transition to something like that. This is, sort of your idea would be to
This
slowly
starting
bring
point.
this on
Right.
as we have more pathways, but eventually get to where we're putting every kid in a pathway.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay. I just had to talk it out.
We'd like to have every kid choose a pathway, even if they don't stay on it all the way through, we'd like to have kids choose a pathway and go, so that we have more intelligent
Right.
elective choices.
Well, still, and they can
That's-
bounce. I mean, that's okay too, I assume.
Right.
That's not the issue. It's, I just, the thing that really appealed to me that I saw, those kids, it was just so clear in their eyes, even if they're gonna change their mind later, I know exactly what I'm doing. It wasn't, I'm just going to school after I graduate.
Right.
It was, no, I'm in this one today. I might be in that one tomorrow, but I know exactly where my home is.
Right.
And when they look, and they look great on the screen with 23 of them, it still just looks like a bunch.
Right.
And it's just hard to, like, are there groupings or some way to make a kid understand better? I belong to this sort of section right now with, yes, I have an option to move later, but I just don't know how we wrangle that in better. So it's clear to parents either, or also, who also don't know what this term means. How do we translate that to them?
In the ag field, we have up to 5 or 6 pathways. So it seems like, 23 looks like a lot, but
Right.
several of them fall under one cluster.
Right.
And so kids would kind of figure out where they want to be within that cluster.
Carl?
Of course, the idea that we want to move toward is for each student to have an individual plan of study.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, how are we presently using the 9 pathways? How are students getting connected with those?
Well, in our program planning guide, we try to show them as you're picking electives, here are some, here's some linear, we call it pathways, but here's some ways that if you're interested in this, if you take these courses in sequence, you're gonna get more in depth and hopefully be better ready when you go on to the next level. And so we try to talk to them about that. But when you only have 9, sometimes you don't hit everybody, so that's why we're trying to expand, so we have more comfort with more students. And, it's just a different way to talk. We just need to start talking to kids in a different way than what we have before.
So at this point in time, if you just had to guess off the top of your head, how many students would you say that are actually engaged in one of the 9 pathways?
Well, almost every kid starts because Success 101 is like
Right,
a really,
everybody takes that.
is take, and so, that gets everybody kind of started,
Right.
and hopefully through that, then, but
Really have no idea.
When
I
we
don't-
get government added, every senior will be in a pathway. Because right now, we require all seniors to take government, as an example. So in the government and public service pathway, government will be a course in that pathway. So in essence, every senior will be in a pathway, at least one, because that's a required credit that the board has established in years past.
well, like this pathway, every student has to take biology.
Yeah.
So every student has started.
Already in the pathway.
In a
Yeah, it's
pathway,
already in a
yeah.
pathway.
So some of it's just sort of, by default, the required coursework has placed them in a pathway.
What we need to do is start the dialogue so that they'll continue and try to, say, is this something I really want to do? And dig deeper in it instead of just taking a class here and taking a class there and taking a class. Which is not, there's nothing wrong with that either, to try to explore different
Except they may
things.
find out, by the way, when you're doing that randomizing thing, you might actually be in a pathway called what you're interested in.
Right.
You're
It
welcome.
answers
Like
that
that just comes
question.
along for the
Yeah, it
ride.
does come along with it, right.
Why am I taking biology?
Right. Exactly.
And in the past, we haven't been great about answering that question. Now we can answer the question when I say, why do I have to take biology? And Mr. Alexander and Ms. Fernandez-Flores can say, because biology leads you into all of these various pathways, career pathways. Look and see what it does when we lay out the map. So even if they don't want to do it, at least get broadened with why they're taking it. And that's the helpful piece.
I see your college and career advocates having a major role in this.
Definitely, as they guide people.
So I ran a workforce program where I felt like it was basically a dream crusher, where there was a lot of, I'm going to be a professional gamer, or I'm going to be, just something have a lot of potential for kind of sustaining themselves in the future. I see how this really works for the higher achieving students. How does it work for those students who do want to be a gamer or a dancer or some other paths?
Well, I mean, you know, there are, I mean, gamer, there, we have a path in computer, you know, like science and that kind of thing, so, you know,
Like a YouTuber. Like
yeah.
Can we not tell my 9-year-old boy about that pathway?
So, you know, so there is gonna be something kind of saying, well, if you're really interested in that, you better go these steps. I don't believe in telling anybody that they can't do, it'll eventually happen. You know, if you wanna be an engineer and you're bad at math, you're probably not gonna be an engineer, but that's not me to crush your dream. It will naturally happen. So, I mean, really, I mean, I think there was, you know, many of you know Rich Godfrey, who was a counselor forever. His high school counselor at Shawnee Heights told him, you should never go to college and you should drive a truck. And that's what he said to him. Well, he went on, got his master's degree. I mean, I just don't think that's our job. I think it's our job to help steer kids. And then, you know, they'll figure it out, especially at this young age. So.
Probably.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I am going to follow that by talking about the secondary program planning guides. This month, these are just a discussion item. They are in your folder underneath the secondary program planning guides. So what started with these conversations last year has led to some great discussions and even bringing it down to the middle school level. So I'm excited about the opportunities that we can provide next year. So in those documents, you're going to see just a summary of the changes we want to make at the middle school, the changes we want to make at the high school, and then the high school has added some of their course descriptions. We added those along with ours. So at the middle school level, to kind of help with our Project Lead the Way at the high school, we are looking at adding 2 Project Lead the Way courses at our middle school. One will be replacing our 7th grade industrial tech that we do for a semester. Instead, we will be doing the Project Lead the Way design and modeling. Then we want to add the Project Lead the Way automation and robotics as an elective. And then another one that has just kind of come up by having great discussions is our National History Day and Understanding Sacrifice. It's going to be an elective in our history because we have a lot of students who sign up to do History Day projects at the middle level, and they do it all outside of the school day. There's not a course for them to take. And so they meet in the evenings, they work on it on their own, they have to find time to get to the research, and so we want to provide them that opportunity. We also want to bring in some Model UN and bring into that, like Dr. Noble said, if we want to have a pathway in the government, let's get that started at the middle school and get that interest sparked. So if we can have a middle level Model UN that can help kids get an interest in that, then we can keep that building in the high school. So the middle school looks like that. At the high school, due to the need for some courses to be added to complete pathways, we are looking at some additions, and so those are divided up into departments, like the agricultural department is going to add an applications in horticulture. Now, as you read this document, there are some courses that will not be offered immediately next year, but in order to plan for that pathway, to plan for that to be, you know, we have to have a prerequisite offered and then add this course. We wanted to get those in front of you now. We want that in front of our kids now. So when they start looking in January and February at their courses for next year, they realize, well, I'm going to need to take this course because, wow, I really want to take AP Studio Art when it's offered in 1920. So being able to look ahead. So we're asking for those to be approved now so we can get that in front of our students. So that's another one we want to add is the AP Studio Art. In the business department, we want to look at business management, principles of marketing, 21st century technology communication, so adding those areas. Under the family and consumer science, that's one area that we're going to increase our pathways. Foundations to early childhood development, essentials of interior and design textiles, so capturing some of those different pathways for students, looking at the fact that our Mathis Early Learning Center will be open in another year, using that as a place for that capstone, that internship to be a part of, keeping them in our district. Language arts department, we have a reading strategies class. Science department, again, continuing to add those Project Lead the Way courses that we'll build. Biomedical innovations, again, that's one. There's a side note that that's not going to be offered until the 2019-2020 school year, but we've got to have kids thinking about that now so they can take those prerequisites. Same thing with the engineering design and development. So that's, oh, and then social studies is the adding another elective there under colonial and revolutionary.
that again over winter break, and keep that care for kids, because unfortunately parents have to go back to work, right? And when kids are in school. So I just wanted these ladies to be here. We're here for questions if you have any questions about it, but I also just wanted to recognize them publicly and thank them for partnering with us. And it's been a good partnership, and we look forward to continuing. So, questions for any of them or for me about what we're doing? No problem. Well, thank you very much. Any questions about our report? Other items that we didn't cover? Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. Special services.
It's several professional development opportunities this month provided by Special Services and General Education. We had PD provided by Pat Johnson in the area of literacy, and we've had talked about our behavior symposium, and that'll come up. But I'd really like to talk to you about Medicaid, and if I were to say Medicaid to my special education staff, they'd probably roll their eyes. But it's a necessity, and I kind of wanted you to hear about it. We had Marlene Willis from the Greenbush Director of Medicaid Services come and speak to us just regarding how we document Medicaid and how we capture that funding. The way it normally works, it sounds really easy, is usually at the IEP meeting we have parents sign a Medicaid release document, and they write their child's doctor's name on that document. And then we send it off to the doctor, and they sign it, and then we get back. And if our related service providers have provided service for that child, so if they have OT or PT or speech and language, something like that, we can capture funding. And if they sign that, it covers the entire school year. So it's worked out really well for us. Well, they have tightened the reins on Medicaid, and each year there's some more requirements that we need to do as a school district in order to make sure that we can capture those funds. So that's why we have Marlene come and talk to us to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And it's more work for our staff, but it's working out for us. And I just kind of wanted you to know what our staff is doing. And if I tell you an example, a couple years ago, with that parent signature, it worked out really well. The parents would sign it, we'd send it off to the doctor, and sign it, we'd capture the funding. But that's no longer the case. Now we have the parent signature, we send it off to the doctor, and it's from the time the doctor signs it, so there's been a gap in providing those services, maybe a month or two gap by the time the doctor gets it back to us. It doesn't all now cover the entire school year. So we've made some changes, sending those out earlier before that lapse occurs. Another change is a log entry. They could just write on their MediClaim. It's a system that our OTs and PTs and all those people document. They could just document it and move on. But now they have to document what they're doing. It has to be related to the goal and get the correct numbers. So there's just a little more complication with it. This year, one of the changes was that you cannot capture any funding for any service under 8 minutes a day. Now, you would think students usually don't get a service that's 8 minutes or lower a day, but that's actually our nursing services. We have lots of students that get a medication 5 minutes or less a day, and we've always been able to bill for that. Well, we no longer can unless it's over 8 minutes a day. Or if the student maybe gets medication twice a day, some of those students might reach 8 minutes a day. But that's a service that we've lost now because of that time frame. I've had some of the nurses, if you have an extra loan, you can, as long as it's on the IEP, if it goes over 8 minutes, you can document that service and you can capture some funds. Finally, this year, another requirement is that we make sure that we have the doctor's MPI number, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but the doctors never write them on there, so we have to look them up and find them, and then until we find them and put that in the system, we can't capture any funding until that occurs. So just little steps that we have to jump through that we need to make sure that our providers are doing. Along with, one of the main ones I would say would be they have to document the service in Medicaid the day they provide the service. If you don't document it the day you provide the service, then you can't capture any funding. So now we have our computers up as we're, right after the service, we just need to make sure that we're documenting that. So just more things that we are required to do that we need to know about so we can capture that funding. If you're wondering, estimate, we have our December 1 count that's not finalized. We have about 759 students on IEPs right now. 429 of those students qualify for Medicaid service, so that's over half. And of that 57% of students that qualify for Medicaid service, about 25% of those students receive a service that is reimbursable. So they're receiving OT or PT or SLP services, or get some, even school sites can bill for their testing. So that's about 109 students, 190 students on IEPs that we can bill Medicaid for. And we get about $150,000 to $200,000 a year for those small services that we bill. So it's pretty important for us to make sure we do that. So I wanted to let you know about that. I'm excited about staying on top of it. The next thing I'd like to discuss with you is recruitment. You guys probably saw at the beginning of the school year that in September 2017, according to the Topeka Mountain Journal, we had about 80 vacancies across the state for special education teachers only. We are feeling it in Seaman. We have this year one teacher at Seaman Middle School that we were unable to fill the position for. And we have a great long-term substitute for that position, is a retired teacher from Shawnee Heights that will be ending in May, but it's great that she's been able to come and fill in for us. And we've had a speech and language position. This is our second year that we've been unable to fill. And so how we did that is our speech and language teachers have a few more students on their caseloads, but they also have a para. I provided a para to support them to provide some services as well. So we're covering it, but we're starting to feel it. And as we have retirements coming in, we have some positions that are definitely open next year. 3 special education teacher positions, as well as a school psychology position and that SLP position that we haven't filled. So I am, and the special education department is trying to be proactive in what we're doing to recruit these teachers. And one thing is spending a lot of time, go ahead.
As we look at recruiting, honestly, retention is a big factor as
Yes.
well. And I know other districts are looking at paying by the number of IEPs that teachers have, so as teachers may be overloaded. I'm also interested in your report and what things we're doing for retention of our special ed teachers.
We have, of course, all of our new teachers across the state are required to do a mentorship program for 2 years now. That's a new requirement for the State Department, is for them to be involved with a 2-year mentorship. On top of that, I require my new special education teachers to be involved in a mentorship that's across the state. It's called Electronic Mentoring for Student Success. And they are paired with a teacher somewhere in Kansas that's teaching the exact same thing that they're teaching. So I'll have a new early childhood teacher. They're paired with an early childhood teacher in Kansas, somewhere in the state. And they're both given iPads, and they can keep the iPad if they complete the mentorship. And they observe each other, they help write IEPs together, and even though they're not in the same town, somebody could be in Garden City that's a mentor. It's all electronic mentoring, which I've had a lot of success with. We have great mentors in Seaman, but it's always nice to go out in the state and see what other people are doing. So I think that's been very helpful. Another thing that I'm doing in special education just this year for that very purpose is requiring all of our school psychologists to be involved with a PLC within their buildings with all their special education staff. I think sometimes special education teachers do get bogged down with just the fact that they're working with our neediest students, whether it's behavior or academics, and they need the village. They need the village to help them, and so they want to be part of that village. So that's what we do, is we make sure that they're meeting. Some of them at the middle school are meeting once a week, at other schools mostly once a month.
I guess I was thinking more financial incentives as opposed to additional requirements that they have to do.
We haven't got to
on
financial,
top of a
we haven't
tough
got to
teaching
financial
job.
incentives. We haven't got to that yet. That's something we can look at. Nothing that we looked at yet. Yeah. They do have a stipend. Special education teachers in Seaman have a stipend for that as well, which is a financial incentive on top of a regular ed teacher. Other things for recruitment right now, I've tried to build a relationship with Washburn University. I spent a lot of time with them on a couple of committees this year. and getting student teachers for special education and getting practicum students to come to our district, as well as I was on a interview team for Washburn University Student Teacher of the Year, and there were 2 great special education teachers, and we had one last week come to the middle school, and I just emailed him afterwards, wow, you were great, he's Washburn University Student Teacher of the Year, and I said, would you like to come out and see our middle school, we have a position, and so he came out last week, and we wined and dined him. So we'll see.
Not really, but
Yeah.
not really, no time, but hey.
Chili and cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. So, and one other thing that's going to be long-term, but I feel like we need to look at it, is our para to professional program. With the help of Dennis, we've joined the para to professional program at Washburn University as well. And I have 6 paras that are, 6 paras across the district that have applied for that. And it's, they have to be 50 hours into their program, and then they get financial support, and we help them along the way to be teachers, so that's exciting. Then, I've had contact with lots of universities and things like that. You can read that along with my report. Because it's important to reach out to universities for our new teachers as well. We have a practicum student coming next semester for school psychology, which I'm excited about. So we're working to get the word out. We especially in special education understand and are feeling the teacher shortage, and we're taking it very seriously, and we want to be proactive in that process. So do you have any questions about any of this or anything else I want to report? Okay, thanks.
So, here at Indian Creek, we had a little bit of theft. Somebody took the compressor lines. As you can see, those hangers used to have 2 copper lines on there. They actually cut 7 different units. We removed the compressors now, and they're all inside, so they won't get the aluminum and everything else. They're from bad cans. You just have to recharge it, put the lines in. They also got the bell. I don't know how they got that off of there, but they were dedicated. Over at Logan.
Just a question, are you going to follow up by calling some of the local salvage companies?
We contact Phil, and Phil does whatever he does.
It's kind of hard to move a bell like that. One of my prior employers, we had a lot of things stolen similar to that, and we were actually able to find them.
Really?
At a certain couple of companies.
Huh.
Phil should know who they are.
Keeping an eye on things. He's aware of it, and I'm sure he's doing police reports on things. Just to keep things on the up and up, right? For Logan, we've got the parking lot lights in and on. The picture really doesn't do any justice. However, if you go by there, it looks really good. We do still have some building lights that we're in the process of changing out and redoing. Some of the brighter ones we don't necessarily need shining like directly at me now in that photo. So we might just kind of tilt it towards the playground area until we find a more permanent fixture to light that area. Mathis, still under construction. As you can see, that's not the new paint color yet. Ductwork, etc. They cut a hole in there that doorway or lighted area there is the parents' teachers' access. So we'll be able to directly go from their area to the gym or play area. Ceiling grids in, walls painted, floors yet to go. The new entry, concrete's poured. Got some rock caps done on the brickwork. Fairview. This is back to the lagoon, which hasn't been looked at or touched for quite some time. We had some erosion, all the construction, you get more hard surface, therefore you get more runoff. So added some compactable gravel, kind of made a drive back there so the guys can maintain it better. The area was always, seemed like it was always wet, never had a chance to thaw out and dry, the trees were overcovered, everything. Also had back to the pictures, don't do any justice, but water was coming right down that roadway, entering into the lagoon area and cutting some big ruts. So they had a company berm the area up, it's redirecting water around the berm, around the ponds, and therefore we ought to keep everybody happy. Here's a cover for the solids. It was made out of plywood, and periodically you've got to open that up and clean it out. This is the good parts, man. Anyways, we put new covers on. Now you don't have to worry about anybody accidentally stepping on them going through. This is what happened Monday after, of course you guys are probably already aware of this, but the Monday after Thanksgiving holiday, we had a water main break in Northern Hills. And a couple of guys noticed the shiny grounds area. So dug her up and they put a Band-Aid on it. Hopefully we can get the whole thing replaced. This is the second time that water line has broke in the last 3 years roughly. I guess it broke 2 or 3 years ago thanks to the building. The bus barn and maintenance, Steve Smith, one of the maintenance guys, he added these 3 lights to the front of the building above the garage doors. Really lights it up well, looks good, LED lights. Here's the new truck that you guys approved. It's been very nice, getting a lot more production instead of working out of a backside of a pickup truck. And here's Steve Smith hanging some lights right outside this building. Any questions? Any lagoon questions? No? Yes.
All right, I don't have any pictures for you, but I do have my stats. They were up a little bit, but we're doing a better job of tracking it, and it's not going to move for me. So it's all in your writing. Did you turn it off?
Yes.
How about? Okay, and then I added these Power School numbers for you just to show you that it's money well spent. If you look at that, we get a lot of people heading to Power School, and what's impressive to me is the number of students that get in Power School a lot, and that's just because they want to know where they are academically. And then this again is Schoology, and you can see the majority of it is students, and that little orange sliver is parents. So I did have one success story for you. You know, so often when you pay for software, you wonder if it works. Well, we've got a device management software that we've used for several years. Well, we had a computer stolen a year ago, and it came back online last week, and we were able to remotely install Prey on it, which is a software that captures longitude and latitude. It also takes over the camera, and it lets us do screenshots. So this wasn't the brightest guy in the world, but we captured him doing some illegal drugs in a motel, and then the next time he came online,
You can have pictures of that?
yeah, we did have pictures of him, but I don't want to show them. The next time he came online, he was at the drug rehabilitation center. So I don't know what that means, but through that, we were able to get his name. We got his Facebook page. We gave it to law enforcement. Phil gave it to law enforcement, and the guy brought it in. The police contacted him, he brought it in and said he bought it, so the software did it like it's supposed to. So that's one success story. And we're getting ready for Christmas break. Christmas break's always kind of a busy time for us. We do things in the buildings that we can't generally get done. One thing we're going to do, for those of you that toured our building is we're gonna inventory things. And I say we, I'm not gonna be here. I'm having a hip replaced next week. So I'm taking the Christmas break off and bug my wife. I got that big bill from Indian Creek.
I found it.
Yeah. But they'll get a lot done while I'm gone, so any questions for me?
Karen, did you have that at the, what do we call it, technology committee meeting we talked about? You were gonna do
I
something.
did.
Six. Did you do that?
I did, and I invited several school districts to attend. I had a couple drop off, but 501 was there.
Yeah, do you mind?
501, what we did
Bringing
was,
it up to speak with them.
James sent me an email, reminded me about cybersecurity and the risks that K-12 schools are at. So I did a lot of research and I realized I didn't know enough. So we have all this resources of schools. So I contacted Shawnee Heights and I contacted 501, Holton, Shawnee Heights, and then I contacted ISG, which is a vendor here in town, as well as Melinda Stanley, who I've known for years, and she's with CanRan, which is an organization that helps schools out with that type of thing. And I also asked, I can't remember her name, but she's on our committee, Randy Stahl, who in a previous life was with Homeland Security, to attend, and it was really a good meeting. Very good meeting, and out of that meeting, we've agreed to assemble quarterly as a group, and then we're gonna bring USD 500 out of Kansas City, Kansas, so that we can pool our resources and hopefully. What I did find out was we are doing a fairly good job here. We can always do more, which we'll look into, but it helped us do a cost risk analysis because you can go way overboard and still get hit, but we just need to be aware of it. It was interesting, the gentleman from ISG was with a company that his job was to go in and hack businesses. That was his job. They would hire him to come in. Well, he told me that he requires his end users to have a 20-character password. 20-character password. They never use the same password twice in a time period for different applications. So he had a 20-character one, and he had a great idea. He went to phrases. So he has a four-word, four-character phrase that he used rather than try to remember a password. So this gives us food for thought. And I also had me thinking that I need to start thinking about our disaster recovery for our technology is good, but I don't think that we're in our emergency plan. Technology isn't in there. Well, if the building goes down, then a lot of things have to happen, so we need to rethink that. But just to let you know, we do duplicate backups, so unless a tornado went through and took out several buildings, we'd be okay. It does give me pause to think about offloading as much as I can to the cloud and let them deal with it. So, but it was, thanks for asking, it was a really worthwhile time.
It matters enough to me, I wanted everybody else to hear about it, because I mean, translation, it could eventually lead to dollars.
Well, yeah, and you know, K-12 got
That's
hit
something they will start caring about.
8,500 times. K-12's been hit with ransomware software, and some of them have paid. Obviously, we wouldn't pay because I think that we would be okay, but it did make me think, having them there, things you don't think about. One school district that was hit, the end was an old server that had been out of use for 3 years, but they'd left it on the network and they just forgot about it. And as you know, the number one risk we have is our staff and employees. And we do a pretty good job at penetration, but lateral movement in our network is something we have to look at. But it was well worth it, and we'll meet again. So, any other questions? All right, thanks.
Action items. The first item up is to consider the extension of the neighborhood revitalization program. Last month we talked about it briefly, and tonight the city planning director, Bill Finder, is here to answer any questions that we may have. If anyone's got questions for him, again, 1-year extension of the current plan to give the city time to study health maps and questions?
Yeah. Why were we waiting on this? Why was this wait, now we gotta do an extension like that now?
The extension for the year was actually proposed earlier in calendar year 2017. The last time I was here was 5 years ago, which we had approved. So we usually start the renewal process the year that it expired, which is at the end of this year. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, it just feels kind of odd that we've got a 5-year, and all of a sudden we wait clear to the end of this year to ask for an extension for next year.
Sure.
But, we're not sure that we'll benefit.
Sure. No, understood. Yeah, there was some hiccups along the way this year trying to get this before you earlier. Has to go through our city council first, and so we had to wait 6 months for procedural hiccup, I guess I would call it, earlier in the year, back in spring. So now here we are in the fall when we were able to get back to all the other taxing entities. The idea is that our health data that supports this program is going to be renewed next spring. And so we like to sync up the plan with that health data, so it is based on that data. So that's why the 1-year extension is being asked for, is just to give us time to catch up our health data with the plan. Then we'll be back here again, probably mid-year, going through probably a 3-year request to extend the program. Because that's 3 years is the timeline we use for our health data to update that. But we are open to hearing any suggestions along the way and concerns.
Can we introduce Bill for the record?
I think I did.
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming. I've had a lot of dealings with city planning and zoning in the last 27 years, and it's been refreshing to have Mr. Feener lead his department. He's turned it around, I think, quite a great deal. I'm very appreciative of the work that you've done since you've been in charge of it, and I'm honored to be able to say that in a public setting. So I do want to thank you for your work on behalf of the city of Topeka, Bill.
So thank you.
The question I have, the idea behind it is that if we don't levy these taxes, about the increase in value for a property that's going to be improved, that acts as an incentive and would cause more people to improve their properties. Is that fair?
The program is designed to cause things that wouldn't happen.
Right, but it does, but I don't know if it's an intended consequence or an unintended consequence, but one of the consequences is it'll still capture things that would have happened otherwise. An example would be the old Kmart building that sits up north, or maybe the better example is the old Valleys that's being redone now, the grocery store. That might have happened anyway, but they're going to reap the benefit of this program, which the consequence of it is that our school district won't reap the benefit of that improvement for 10 more years. How do we, as a board, calculate whether or not that program is a good calculus for us?
Well, you're getting into a area what we call the but-for test. Would the project happen but for the incentive? The beauty, if you will, call it the beauty of an economic development incentive program like this is it is a streamlining of the program as you will find across the state. It's a state mechanism that they get into cities. A very sophisticated developer, a very unsophisticated homeowner can take advantage of it without hiring attorneys and bond counsel. And so the application is streamlined. there's only really four tests that we have. One is, we have shrunken the area quite a bit over the years to just align with the at-risk intensive care areas. So now it's about 18% of the city boundaries, to give you some idea of the size of this. So we are targeting our most investment challenged areas. So we're making that leap that these areas are our hardest areas to find investment. And so to make that work, to make it happen, a program like this is necessary. When you go beyond those boundaries, then you start to get into areas where things probably were going to happen or they're more likely to happen. But in these investment challenged areas that we're targeting, no, it is not easy. So we make that assumption, or at least the program makes that assumption that but for targeting those areas, these might not happen. The second thing would be, we do have a deadline on the application. It used to be a bit open-ended. Now we have a pretty hard 60-day deadline after you get your building permit. We agree, or we would, over the years, we've agreed with the premise that this is really an incentive program, not a reward program. We don't want to reward things.
Sorry to interrupt, it's
Yeah.
60 days, that's when they have to put a shovel in the ground, so to speak.
That's when they have to apply for the incentives first. So, or they have to show us that they knew about the program, they had paperwork, conversations, pro formas that showed that they had intended to use this program to do their project. So there has to be some proof that they wanted to use it before. They just can't find out about it one day and say, oh, we just started a project now, let's come back and apply for it.
So under no circumstances will completed work be granted this program?
Correct. That's correct. It has to be before the project is.
Before the building permit?
No, before the project's even partly under construction. 60 days after the building permit. So they could be under construction in 60 days, sure.
So the time limit is, they have to apply for it within 60 days after they have a building permit?
Correct.
Or they can do it certainly before the building permit?
Yes. Actually, they many times they don't. In fact, most times they don't, because there's no project until they get the building permit. We don't know the value of the.
If they've already started, then they don't qualify for the.
If they're already.
They've already started construction before the permit is approved. They don't benefit from that tax break.
Well, they shouldn't be starting.
I understand that.
But, yeah, no, in the case of starting work and kind of working themselves backwards, I don't think this is used. In fact, I'd have to check to see if we have some fail safes in there so that it is not used for people to correct violations.
And those decisions aren't made by the city council, they're made at the administrative level, correct? Your office is.
Correct. These are there's a plan that's actually what you're approving or agreeing to be participating in, is the city council adopts a plan that all taxing entities agree to participate. That plan has all the criteria listed as to, it's predetermined. You've got to, residential has to increase it by 10% property value, else you don't get anything. Commercial has to increase it by 20% in property value from the base year to your post-improvement year.
The one time you're actually rooting for the Shawnee County appraiser to do their job. I guess that's too much of an inside joke.
So there are, and you have a bigger incentive if you're in one of our intensive care areas, which we have 4 of those, and those are the most challenged areas. You get a full 10 years, 95% rebate. If you're in any other area, it's you only get 5 years, full 95%. And the second 5 years is cut in half. And that was a change in the last go around. So we're about on par with other cities are doing. In fact, I'd say we're actually quite in line now. For particularly, we're a little unique in that we are targeting these. Wyandotte County has the entire county open, or even by Grand Island.
I think there's some counties that do that actually, Natchez in my home county does that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm somewhat heartened by this conversation, and again, I want to thank you for coming. The final story of my career in economic development was how the Security Benefit Headquarters got their IRBs, which gave them a 10-year tax exemption after it was fully built. Didn't really seem like much of an incentive to me, but the taxpayers sure missed out on those 10 years. So I'm glad you've been able to answer those questions about how you look at these, because it makes me feel a little bit better about the program. For a one-year extension, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to approve it. I hope that in a year from now, when they come back, this board has a full discussion about the merits of this program in the first place. And I think, as I pointed out at the last board, the mill levies of the city and the county are sizable, as are cities. But if I can pause on that thought, has the county already approved this?
Yes.
The one-year extension?
Yes.
What about the other school districts?
Yes.
More last?
Yes.
Sometimes that's a good thing. But I think there needs to be a discussion made, or had, and Bill, when you do come back in a year, perhaps some statistics for our North Topeka district about the number of people who took advantage of it and the property valuation that's been added would be very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have that, and I'd be glad to put that together. We do have that information, and it may help you in your decision-making. There's probably, just to give you an idea, there's, over the last 10 years, there's been about a project a year in the school district, in your school district. It's probably about 10 or 12. Probably the biggest one is the Walgreens built at Lyman and Topeka. Sutherland's is another one. Spangles was years ago when it got built. So, and then there's been some smaller ones. So it might help give you a flavor of what, these types of projects that are benefiting.
Well, with,
Okay.
I'm still somewhat of a skeptic about programs like this in terms of how much of an incentive it provides to the taxpayer when there are so many other incentives. And I think, as I said earlier, the Machiavellian play would be to not participate in this program, because I think the incentives that the city and the county give, that construction would happen anyway, and we could go ahead and reap the tax benefits from the get-go. With that being said, though, I think that's a discussion the duly elected board next year should have. And with that, I'll approve the motion, or I would make a motion to extend this for 1 year.
Second. Motion by Rich, second by Sherry. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2.
No, yes.
I know. You heard two. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next, item B, financial items and claims.
You have the claims that are in 7B. Entertain questions, if not, a motion to approve.
Any questions?
Second.
Motion by Carl, second by Christie. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we've got a bid.
I have a bid for you tonight. We have a leased bus, a special education bus that's coming off a lease, 16-passenger type A, non-wheelchair. Typically 2 players in that market. We can get a bid from both in-state. Our low bid this time is from Midwest Bus, $31,716 and 76 cents. Recommend your approval. And that's over a total over 4 years.
So moved. Motion by Frank.
Second.
Second by Carl. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Keep going.
2 change orders tonight. First one is a upward change order of Mathis. As you can see in the text there, ran into a drainage issue. The high point on the east side of the north wing at Mathis occurs about 6 feet out from the building, so you've got water running back towards the building. Part of the project to remodel Mathis involved cutting in a door in that wall, so serious concerns about water going back into that door, which we don't want, and also the other issue is water standing there where kids are going to be coming out, particularly in the wintertime, so it could pose a safety issue as well. So to tear out the existing asphalt, do some drainage work, we're also going to tie drains, downspouts into this, there's a new sewer line that runs over towards Lyman Road, tie into that, so to grade it and get water into a sewer line, the proposal $23,775. Questions?
Motion?
So moved.
Motion by Sherry, I'll second. Motion by Frank. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next one?
Better change order on the next one as far as the price going down. Has to do with the Seaman High School batting cage. Initially, we were going to enclose that facility. That became very cost prohibitive to do so. So in speaking to Coach Monholland, he has agreed to open it up and it'll be a similar facility to what Coach Bushnell has on the baseball side. One of the reasons for wanting to enclose that facility was to have a year-round place for softball kids to practice. And so I believe we have some things in place to help out in that regard. So with knowing that, Coach Monholland is agreeing to do the change, and so there's a reduction in the building from all steel of $6,628, so the new price on that building is $18,655. Questions? Yes, sir.
What does cost prohibitive mean?
Oh, the total project was slightly under $100,000 to do that.
What was budgeted?
30.
I move we approve the change order. Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, and I need to apologize on 7, or I know we're going, I gotta sit down for one
You
minute.
gotta sit
I'm
down
sorry.
for a second.
I'm not gonna apologize yet. I'll apologize in a second. I'll get rested up.
This is mine. The legislative one voice documents back in front of you for your second reading and approval tonight. No changes. We did have a chance to meet with the Shawnee County delegation at the State House last week. Went through much of the document with them, so I'm seeking your approval tonight.
Well, I do have a question. Why do we think that local control of health insurance is cheaper than pooling it with the entire state of Kansas, or better?
It's a difficult decision, it's a difficult issue because the largest local controlled public school district is Wichita 259. And their employees, their rates right now are far below what the state can offer. We can't beat it. And so it's kind of a difficult animal to take on with 259 not in the mix. But there are other districts that are pooled. Not all of them have their own local insurance. Seaman does. But the many smaller districts, particularly central and western Kansas, all pool under local service centers. They'll have hundreds, about 100 or 150 school districts in one pool, for example, a small school district. So there is an effort to pool. Not all of them are in the state plan.
Other than their intransigence from being in our league, what would stop us from pooling with Shawnee Heights or Washington Rural?
We're exploring that actually. Yeah, we've opened those conversations to pool together with them, as well as looking at some other providers, possibly reduce our rates.
Would it have to be just for school districts?
No.
Necessarily.
No. There's examples out there of like a school district, the county, a township, entering into cooperative agreements on health insurance. I'm not aware of any local ed, I'm aware of outside of the state. So I say that, I assume it's okay. It is in Wisconsin. I don't know if it is, I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Any other questions? Do you want a motion to approve this? Motion to approve. Motion by Carl.
Mr. President, I'll be abstaining from this vote since this concerns the 2018 school year, but if I had to vote, I would vote no on this.
I have to abstain from this as a registered lobbyist.
I probably should since it comes to me.
Second. You're down to 4.
Second. Second by James.
Get it through.
Yeah, all in favor on that end? Aye.
We'll take it.
Passes for nothing.
Barely.
No one else become a lobbyist,
Yeah.
at least by next year. He's back.
I am back. Now I will apologize. It was my oversight that the Optimus lease agreement renewal was not on the agenda, so I apologize for that and for the short notice, although I believe you were aware of the fact that that lease was coming due. The recommendation this evening is to extend the lease. There is one, what I would call significant monetary change to the lease, and I think it requires an explanation. The original lease, which was signed back in December of 2007, required the district, or gave the district the responsibility to maintain grounds, and the specific language in there says including mowing of field, mowing of grass. Somewhere along the line in the last 10 years, the Optimus Club has taken that responsibility over. I can't tell you when, I can't tell you why, but I guess kind of the bottom line is we were out of compliance with our lease by giving them that responsibility. Very clearly, there says it's ours. So what we've agreed to do with your approval is to contribute $5,000, and that's not just for mowing expense, but also we believe that since we create wear and tear on those parking lots, especially when buses hit them, it's reasonable for us to contribute some money toward parking lot maintenance as well. So that would be where the fire is basically split. They see it as half and half, about 2,500 mowing and 2,500 to go into a pool of money to do maintenance on the parking lots. Other than that, the lease just has date changes on it. The only significant other language changes, the one with the mowing and maintenance. Questions?
Is this something Schindel would do?
Yeah, that's a possibility. The deal right now is, how much they want, they get a mower donated, Tar Waters donates a mower in exchange for advertisement, so they've got that, but then they've got to find someone to mow. So it's more so, either we're gonna have to pay, either we're gonna have to send our people over to do it.
Well, that's why I'm curious.
Or contract it out, yeah, certainly could do that. But
We've
like I
not
said,
been doing
right
it,
now,
now we're doing it.
yeah, right now, yeah, and like I said, I don't know how long we've not been
Somebody's
doing
gonna
it,
do
but.
Maybe we look at our list of retired superintendents.
Yeah, maybe that's.
And you can talk about June, you'll look her up.
I'm gonna take $2,500 for him.
Just a bigger two.
Any other questions? Bob, I'm going to remind you, is that on your option to purchase? I think this contract has to be filed with register of deeds for that to be full legal.
Okay.
We hadn't thought about that.
Okay.
As a property right like that, you have to put the rule on notice, and I don't know that this meeting is enough to do that.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Motion by Frank, second by Carl. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have some retirement benefit requests.
Karen Wolin is a
based on her years of service, she's eligible to have the district pay 60% of the cost of her insurance, so she's 65.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, let's see, I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the acquisition of property pursuant to the exceptions in the preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 7:37 Apple. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Yeah, you too. Nice. Good to get some work done, I think. Good.
Yeah.
Black, yellow, and red backgrounds. So it's. Oh, for tonight. Are you on mute, Terry?
Yeah.
First game, yeah, he did that left for the first 3 minutes. Okay, I gotta watch it. You're gonna watch it really good in practice.
Did he get hurt?
It's really hard. He did in the first inning, like, within about the first 2 guys.
Yeah, I saw he only had a couple of minutes.
See it. And the rest of them, like, working on it, he says, I just saw it 6 weeks before we know anything, so he says, I'm gonna.
Yeah, KU's probably encouraging him to be out.
But at the same time, they encourage Ryan's, right? Ryan knows every time we just playing. And that's why he wasn't gonna go out in 2 weeks, until the season started, he went to a pro camp. And they said, we like guys that are multi-sport athletes, which, I mean, I know old school guys like leave 16 hours ago. He knows what he's doing because, well, you can say you're gonna be training for baseball, there's no way you can do it any better than being out for basketball.
So he was sloppy on the outside.
But it's something really unfortunate that he's.
Yeah, he's had bad
He
strength.
could have really contributed, however, with our 4 arms, as quick as we are, we're getting it done, I mean, we're good.
So was he dumpster diving and ironing?
I'm pretty excited, I think the girls.
Yeah, that's. I've had to cut out the stencils. Word.
Well, it just gets prorated.
These guys that are out of the parking lot, even though, we do not call anything, because they were athletic. They let it warm up, they're pretty athletic, we have a game here, but we just felt good for them.
Doing good. I'll be over at your building tomorrow.
Oh, yeah?
For Cooper Garman. Internship display thing, yeah, the intern.
Go ahead.
Check you out, that's kinda cool.
What is?
This little slider screen thing. I haven't seen that.
It came from my security meeting.
Huh.
Yeah.
I got my own. It's a
Piece of
little less
tape.
innovative, but I at least tape to the backside of the tape so the sticky don't get on the camera.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, next we'll go further down the whole class, right?
I do it to everything at home.
Really?
I heard a long time ago about people being able to hack their videos.
Yeah, but are you standing behind it naked?
No, but I don't want people eyeballing me no matter what, you know?
Oh, yeah, I can understand that.
Is, as this region
It's just not my cup of tea.
it's renovating
I don't even like being on this thing. My mojo's all messed up.
We lost audio
Oh, well,
during it. Battery went out.
perfect. If I'd have known that, I'd been fine.
I had audio when you were up.
God. Why can I be like that?
I don't think anybody watches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if do they have statistics on that?
All we can see is somebody went
Oh,
to the page, so,
which could be you or I.
yeah.
Because when Rob was up there, I was watching it.
Yeah, and I had to go 2 or 3 times tonight, so.
Yeah.
How long did they say they were going there?
Highland Park did something cool on Saturday. They recognized 60 years of wrestling at the Melvin Douglas.
7:37.
So they called everybody. And, you know what was interesting is those older guys in the 60s, they still look pretty good.
Yeah, I bet they do. There's a lot of athletic talent that's come through that school.
Yeah, not a lot of,
Don't be telling this guy that.
well, not a lot of state champions though.
We went to the North Store one.
Jimmy was state champion, and Jimmy was a grand state champion, because they only had 2 years.
Yeah. And 1 year of basketball.
Yeah, and we won it.
James Patrick.
Yep, we won it and lost to Seaman by 1 point.
James told me he was 5'10", 5'11", as a playing center for that grand state championship.
We've got a picture of
He's about
James.
6'5" now.
Yeah, we got a picture with James in the yearbook, with his hand up at the backboard.
Yeah, he could really.
That and he was a straight A student.
He's good, man.
We were playing Bombardum at one time with volleyballs, and he broke a bleacher with the volleyball.
Yeah, the prices are up.
I grew up with James.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's been there for many years. Played a lot of basketball.
They're struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you saw.
he worked with you.
Yeah, we played
Yeah.
a lot of basketball. We play the other facilities, or we play city league together. It's fun to be on a team with a guy like that. Makes you-
Yeah, it is.
You know, he's gonna draw a lot of attention and kick it out to you, or if you miss a shot, he's gonna put it back in.
When he was on Hughes Conoco though, they played a team from Nebraska that was all white, but they played together and they beat them.
Yeah, that team ball makes a difference.
Yeah. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is nice. There's a lot of tradition there, a lot of history there.
The,
Highland Park, the most recent article that came out in the paper was very enlightening.
yeah.
about
Well,
what's
Dale
happening.
Cushenberry was there. Do you know Dale?
I know Dale, yeah.
He's 70 years old.
He looks great.
He looks unbelievably great, but it was Jim Tomes, Rick Brady, and me. So, in that, because they put us in years, and Rick graduated with Jim Tomes. And so 3 guys there that either work or worked for Siemens, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Some guys that have made a big difference in the district too.
Rick's a good guy,
He certainly is.
and he was a great athlete.
Great teacher.
Yeah.
Amazing.
He said only if he had a good principal,
Then they better not expect
he'd
us
probably
to
do
ever
better.
Probably true. I try to support him the best I can. He doesn't need much support, a guy.
Yeah, he's good.
You guys use Snapchat?
And there's more coming to light with all that Title I and the athletes moving, we gotta hold them accountable to boundaries, there's more coming out on that,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep,
It's
and
really
Highland
not
Park's,
unfair to Highland Park.
no, Highland Park's gonna have a hard time fielding a football team.
Until they firm up those boundaries, that's right.
We had,
Well, look at Bishop Miege in Kansas City.
Yeah. They're not only opened up Kansas, but Missouri.
Oh, my goodness. And you know, the disappointing thing to me is, they don't care if those kids are Catholic or what they are. Now, hopefully they get some exposure to
Well, that's the plus side, I think.
Yeah.
And the education
Yeah.
piece and the faith piece, but still, they're, yeah. When I was in Haiti, instructor demanded that they be Catholic or their parents graduated,
Yeah.
some tie. It
Right.
wasn't just gonna open it up with the
Right.
recruiting that occurs at the other schools. But that's changed. They're out for anybody they can get now.
Oh, yeah. Well,
They
but
got
you
both
know,
seats, yeah.
you know, the thing that I had to learn working with those Catholic schools, you know how we get ready for scheduling? We just do it. They gotta wait till they get some money. I mean, if you're not paid up, they don't let you even pick classes. And there's no free lunch. And you know, Bishop Miege has a chef for their lunch, so. But They got a pretty good football team.
I went and watched them play at home in the championship game against Indiana.
It's a different level, isn't it?
That was a beautiful day, nice temperature,
Yeah.
good day for football, and Indiana was good. They should have no trouble with them.
Unlike the weather Buffalo had, huh?
How about that?
Oh, my
That
goodness.
was like a fun game to play.
Oh, yeah, I like to play in the snow, but that was a little deep.
Vincent, Joey?
Oh, no. No, yeah, when I first got here, it was still warm.
We kept fooling around that sewer, and we were on the sink, oh, it's like lava.
Okay, that was it. I guess we are adjourned.